I feel you're the king of pub crawls stuff, so I had to match you. So
I love it. Cheers.
cheers,
Cheers.
brother. I appreciate
Yeah.
you doing this. I'm drinking a Stella. It's not a Alexander Keats, so don't hate me too much. But
Oh man, Keys or Moosehead? What are you doing? Come on.
it's my dad's beer, and I was like, man, do you have a couple extra? And he's like, yeah, I got one extra for you. But the Belgians do it right though. But
You know what they're doing. They've been doing
yeah,
it for a while. So yeah.
a little longer than me, so yeah, they know a couple things.
Yeah.
So man, I'm a big fan of you. So I really appreciate you being able to carve out some time on your Tuesday evening and do the show.
Thank you very much. Well, I really appreciate that, and I've been looking forward to this.
Awesome.
It's nice to see another face and talk to someone and socialize.
Yeah, I bet. So how much like socializing do you get nowadays with the newborn and staying at home with the rules?
The newborn definitely changed things. There's not a lot of. I was gonna say there's not a lot of spare time, but there is a lot of time where you're doing nothing, but you're kind of always waiting for like, okay, well the baby needs to change, or baby needs feeding, or it's
Yeah.
sleeping or something. So there's always a lot happening, but you're not doing very much.
Right. So you're always waiting for the baby schedule.
I'm not doing very much. Let me correct myself. My wife has been just incredible.
That's awesome.
I'm just taking orders. I'm just doing what I'm told. But we're also fortunate enough to we have a big backyard, so we have
Oh, nice.
we have a fire pit back there, and
Oh,
so
sick.
it's been great for COVID because you can be outside and socially distanced, and have another couple over and sit on
Yeah.
the other side, on opposite sides of the yard or something, and
Hmm.
that's been nice. Yeah, I've been very
Nice.
fortunate with that.
Yeah, I bet. So that's amazing to hear. I'm glad it's like you're staying as healthy as you can despite the restrictions we got. So
Mhm.
that's good. So Rob, then with that, take me through kind of what your transition was like graduating high school to kind of where we are nowadays and what the projects you got going on now.
Phew.
Yeah, loaded question to start off. So
Yeah. Well, I'll start by saying this. I was probably the farthest thing you could get from a model student in high school. I scraped by, took an extra year, maybe two, to finish it, just because I wasn't passionate about anything and I
Yeah.
wasn't engaged and I didn't care. And throughout high school and shortly before that, I started doing some like local theater, and that made me realize that through that, I realized that was something I was passionate about and wanted to do. So I ended up going out to, after I scraped by, I ended up going out to Acadia University out east in Nova Scotia, because I was born in Toronto, but I consider myself from the Maritimes. That's where all my majority of my family is, and that's sort of where my heart is.
nice.
And so I was looking for a school that had a theater program and a football team, and there's not a lot of those.
Yeah.
And got to Acadia, realized very quickly I wasn't very good at football, or at least I had gotten by in high school on my size, and then I got to university and there were guys my size running like 4.5s, 4.6, well, really fast.
Wow.
And so that didn't pan out, and I realized you couldn't really do both things at the same time, theater and football,
Yeah.
just because the schedules don't really allow it. So did my 4 years out there. While I was out there, I ended up getting an agent and started booking a few roles here and there. While I was in university, I landed a show called Blue Mountain State, which we were shooting, which I started shooting, I think, in my second year.
Really?
And
Yeah.
goodness, how do I surmise all this? Graduated university, had some more success in the acting world, and decided to go to LA. So I moved to LA for a few years, and actually, I should preface that by saying I was gonna go get my master's in acting. I was fortunate enough to be accepted to the New School University in New York City, and almost went there, but they had a stipulation where you couldn't do outside work while you were
No.
in school, because you become a product of their teachings, and they want to really craft you before you're released into the wild world of acting. And
Makes
I
sense.
had already started booking stuff, so it just didn't
Yeah.
make sense. But I became intrigued about moving to the States. And so, so I moved to LA, lived with my buddy Alan Richardson, who played Thad in BMS for a few months, and kind of went back and forth for a bit until I decided to really give it a go, and moved down there full time for a few years. And then I hated LA and decided to move back. For many reasons, for me, it just wasn't for me. I didn't find that there was any sense of community.
Yeah.
Everything's just so spread out, and I was doing a long distance relationship that whole time, so that didn't help either. But I packed things up and moved home, and have just been sort of shooting stuff here and there, making my own stuff ever since. And that's a rough summation of it.
And so that's crazy though, because my cousin played football for the Acadian team, but I can't remember what years. Because I'm like, man. But because he played for Acadia as well. I did that the whole way through, I think. But I think his program was clearly more like there was kind of, he basically did football and then did school again afterwards. Yeah. He didn't try to do it both at the same time. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go play football and then I'll figure out this school thing. So,
it's a full-time commitment. Not like most schools. I think you have to maintain a certain grade average, and then you have practice just about every night, and then games, and you got to study and watch the tapes, and
So, I guess what I'm wondering with all that is, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced when you were, let's say, when you're in your kind of like your mid-20 range there, like figuring out kind of what to do? I guess what I'm wondering actually was what kind of inspired the move to LA? Was it was because of the role in BMS?
Yeah, I mean, I'd been fortunate enough to have some success, and I kind of just felt like I got to give this a really good go. I got to give it 100%. And that unfortunately means moving to Los Angeles and trying it down there.
Yeah.
And I wanted to challenge myself, and at the time my girlfriend, who I did the long distance with in LA and have since married, it all worked out.
Yeah. Congratulations.
She was getting her master's in London, England. So I thought, well, she's away anyways. Why don't I take this opportunity to go try it and explore that. And
Man, what's the getting an agent process like? Especially at that age when you have the degree and then you have a couple theater performances and stuff, like when you still need a lot more experience. What's that like?
It's a great question. I was pretty fortunate. Before I got to university, I played a lot of football. I played in high school, and then I played in this other Ontario league. Cool. And when I was doing that, there was a guy, I was playing for a team called the Metro Toronto Wildcats. And when I was doing that one day during practice, this guy showed up, and he said he was scouting people to be extras in a new football movie. A movie called It's a Boy Girl Thing. Yeah. And one of the coaches was like, hey, you should talk to Rob. I know everyone knew I did theater as well. Kind of loud. And so he came over and approached me and got me and a couple other guys to come do it. And I got to set, and the director saw me, and he was like, hey, we actually have this role. It's just one line, but I'm going to give it to you. And so I had that under my belt. I had done one production.
Yeah.
But what I did, and what I sort of tell everyone to do, is we have this actors union called ACTRA, and they have a website. I think they still do have this now, but on it had a list of every agent in Ontario, I think, and sort of what they did. Some agents specialize in commercial, some specialize in theater. And so I just sort of went through that whole list of like a couple hundred agents, found the ones who did everything, because I wanted an agent who did a lot. And I just cold emailed them and I said, hey, my name's Rob. I have been doing theater for a while. I just recently did this movie, small part in this movie, and I had a headshot. And so I sent them my headshot. Probably sent out about 300, 200, and heard back from 10 and met with 5.
Nice.
And then met with 2 more of them again, and then eventually chose my agent. And I was fortunate enough to sign with one of the great agents in Canada, Rich Kaplan, and
Nice.
and I've been with him ever since. He kind of just took a shot on me, and you go in as when you don't have that much experience, you have to go in and do cold reads for them, which essentially means that they give you a script.
Yeah.
In the room, they say, take 5 minutes, go look it over. And then I came back and did it, performed it, read it with them.
Interesting. And that script that they would give you, they wouldn't, like, that's not for a role. That's not for, well, maybe this role you might audition if we like what you, that's just them giving you a cold script?
Probably just a script they'd gotten many years ago that they just use as a, it's a script that would showcase someone's talents. So they just sort of keep that in the back
Interesting. I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Cool. Did you do anything like that in school? Like, how did they kind of prepare you for those moments?
Yeah, I mean, we do, auditioning is a huge part of theater and film, which is essentially what that was. It was an audition to get an agent. And I think that's just something that, yes, it's something we worked on, but it's also just a skill you develop with time, just doing it, being able to dissect a script, learn the beats, learn your character's intentions and motivations just based on a script, and read between the lines of what the screenwriter has envisioned for that character. There's often little clues and things you can pick up on, and then just taking a chance. Sometimes you just gotta wing it. And when I auditioned for Blue Mountain State, I auditioned for the role of Herman, the kicker.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and obviously it doesn't make sense to have a guy my size be a kicker, but I thought actually that'd be pretty funny on TV, and maybe that's what I'm going for. So I just really leaned into it and made him like a lazy person with a lazy personality, and didn't end up getting the role. Thank goodness, because they cast James Cade in that role.
Yeah, it's hard to think of you playing that role now after watching the series. I'm like, not really?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But I was just extremely lucky in this. Never happens. But they just saw my audition and they were like, well, he's not right for that role, but we really like his performance, so let's write something for him.
That's sick. No way.
Yeah.
Wow. Because I was going to say, like, what was your audition like for Blue Mountain State? Because it's a very different, at least from what I've seen you in and what like I came across in the research and stuff and the preparation. It seems very different from majority of everything else you've done. Yeah,
I mean, I have a look, right? I'm a big guy with big curly hair. I have a very boisterous laugh. So I generally get cast in comedies, or I'm like the bully or scary bad guy.
Yeah.
And so that was, I mean, obviously far into the comedy side. And I've done some other things as comedic as that. Probably nothing as slapstick as that, because that was sort of the nature of the show.
Mm-hmm. I'm kidding, man. So you did a bunch of traveling. It was after season 2, right? Have you filmed that?
Yeah. I had season 2 under my belt, and we just wrapped. And like I said, my girlfriend was in the UK studying, and I had never really traveled outside of North America. And so I thought, you know what? I got nothing else to do. Let's just let's go do some exploring. So I went out with her to the UK. We road tripped around the UK, and then she started school, and I just kind of said, see ya. And I took off for I don't know, 4-6 months, and I did a bunch of Europe, especially Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
Did a few countries in Africa and the Middle East, and yeah, that was a big chunk. I was gone for a long time doing that,
Yeah,
and then I just stayed with my wife in London while she was going to school, and we did a few trips here and there, Morocco for Christmas, and yeah, some other little spots.
Nice. So I think the craziest thing that I hear whenever, and I think I have this in common with a lot of pretty much everybody who comes on the show, there's a desire to explore and a sense of wonderment that once you make it outside of your kind of more your element, like you're used to growing up following certain ways, systems that either society kind of molds you in, or even in your case that you chose, you're like, hey, I figured out theater, performing, this is what I want to do. And then you kind of took that to your own next level. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to go see the world now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, I don't know that it was that sort of conscious of a choice, but I saw a window and took my shot.
Yeah.
And I have zero regrets about it. I think travel is incredibly important for everyone. I wish I had more time to do it. I've been fortunate enough to travel a lot and have some amazing experiences and meet a bunch of people, and it's changed my perspective. And yeah, do you travel? Are you a traveler and explorer?
Not as of 4 months ago, just with the way, with the way COVID's kind of, taken over. But when I graduated in 2018, I did a school trip kind of through Mitawi, and we did a service volunteer trip to Ecuador. And then we went 8 hours south of Quito, the capital. And so it's right, that city is like half the city is above the equator line and the other is below it. So it's crazy. Like they have this whole equator set up, and I think it's a cash grab. Like it's a really cool tourist spot. But otherwise, we did that for 2 weeks. And then midway through the summer, me and one of my best friends, James, we went to just all throughout Europe, started in Amsterdam, went as far west as far east, as Romania, and then kind of went like this up around the coast, Croatia, Italy, up through France, and up through Spain, France, and then back home after about 6 weeks. So no 4 to 6 months, unfortunately. I'm pretty jealous of that, but it's what other Eastern European countries did you do? So
I
did we did the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, France, Austria, Hungary, which super overrated, or not overrated, underrated countries.
I agree. I agree.
Like we went to. Did you go to Budapest?
Yep.
Man, there was I think there was a 4-night. I think we did 4 nights in Budapest, 4 days in Budapest. Sorry, and then we went from Budapest to Romania, and then went to Serbia, and then went from Serbia to Bosnia to Croatia to Italy, that kind of meet at the arc of the coast, and then went down and then back up through Spain, and then Andorra, the little country in between France and Spain, and then we road tripped that whole thing. So
cool. Bosnia, Serbia, underrated countries. They don't get enough love either. I've never been to Switzerland, but it's what I imagine Switzerland looking like. These like green, rolling, lush mountains, and this beautiful old architecture, and obviously a lot of history there, sort of recent history.
No kidding.
30, 40 years or so. But they don't get enough love. That was so much fun traveling there.
They don't. How long were you, did you road trip, or did you take a train or like backpack and hitchhike?
I did one of those bus tours.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, like with a bunch of random people. It was the most economical way to do it for me. And I wanted to, I guess I love being in uncomfortable situations. I find some sort of joy in that.
I get that for sure.
The outsider and being the new guy, or the one who doesn't speak the language or something like that. So I I joined a bus trip that started in London, did all of Western Europe, and then I joined them in Greece. So they had already developed these bonds and these friendships and relationships and had these inside jokes. And I just sort of, this goober climbed on the bus and I was like, hey guys. So yeah, I did the bus trip.
Nice. That really seems like your style, though, to just, I feel you, like your style of personality is very welcoming in those situations, though, being very like outgoing and just like happy, have a good time, bring everybody in, cheers. So
who doesn't want to have a good time? I don't get people with shitty attitudes.
Yeah.
Life's too short. You're not important enough to be an asshole.
No. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Jeez.
Yeah. What was your favorite country that you've traveled to?
Oh man, it's a loaded question. Because I was able to stay with a lot of family in certain ones, so I got to explore it from their perspective, which is super cool. But I think, and I love Canada, but I gotta say Spain. It's tossed up between Spain or Italy. Like just with the beaches on the coast, the people we met, drinking a lot of Modelo's. And just the group of hostel people we met, and then all the tours and the riding on the mopeds and stuff, everything was just, it was nuts. And then Italy with the perspective of family, and then just eating a bunch of always having a full belly and a full glass of wine. I couldn't really complain there. So toss it between those two.
Cool.
That was one thing that I found is, I was talking to a friend of mine recently about it, is economically, to your point, I had family and I have friends in certain countries. I have a friend of mine, Valerie, in Germany, and then some family in Italy, and then a couple in the Netherlands. So being able to spend 3 or 4 days there out of 6 weeks, and then 3 or 4 days here out of 6 weeks really, really saved us, because we just graduated school. So we had negative money in our pockets.
Yeah.
So it was quite the experience, but I want to do Greece. What was Greece like for you?
I loved it. It was roughly 1,000 degrees. Nice. And I landed too soon after all those Civil War threats and issues and whatnot. And unrest, civil unrest.
Yeah.
So there was definitely something in the air, but I had a great time and loved Athens. And then I went to Mykonos, which was
nice. Yeah,
great. I think I don't remember much.
No regrets, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's amazing. So, oh man, yeah, I could talk about countries and everything. Where now, segueing a bit to your to pub crawl, you mentioned something, and I'll ask you more about it in a minute. But I want to know something before we move off that travel topic. You mentioned at the beginning of every episode that you feel, in your perspective, in your opinion, is your favorite way, and correct me if I'm wrong, to learn about history and learn about a place or a country or city or town you're in, is to local bars, local people, local places like that, and meet the people around it and learn from them. Am I
That was a pretty good segue. I wasn't sure how you were going to connect traveling to pub crawl, but well done.
Yeah. So now I'm curious, how did you, what was something from one of those experiences, whether it be at a pub or that you found in the communities when you were overseas, that one story, let's say, or experience that kind of takes the cake, in your opinion, your favorite?
Well, no one goes to a bar to have a bad time. That's sort of the big thing, right? Everyone is there because they are looking to cut loose, have some fun, relax. Not always, but in some cases, meet new people, have chat with people. Mm-hmm. So I've always just found bars to be a great way to get a sense of the pulse of a country or a community or a city. And so that was something I've always tried to do whenever I travel, is go to different kind of bars too. I love going to the dive bars, the upper class bars, the pubs, whatnot. And I think it's just a great way to meet new people, spark conversations. In terms of stories, I don't know, but my mom and I went to China and India probably 5 or 7 years ago now. She had a big accident. She was walking the dog, fell. The leash got wrapped around her leg, and her leg went like in a bunch of
okay
different.
now though?
She's fine now, yeah. But she was in the hospital for like 6 or 9 months, having it. And when she was in there, we said, let's plan a trip so we have something to look forward to.
Smart.
Something you can work towards. We'd always wanted to go to Asia. And so we planned this trip. And we went into a couple places in India, in some like small towns in just outside of like Agra, where the Taj Mahal is. And in Delhi and everything, and in a bunch of them in in China. And again, places where no one spoke English and no one cared that I was on this TV show. And we had a great time every single time.
That's amazing.
Everyone's always, again, no one's going to a bar to be a grump. So we always just had a great time. And they always are a little bit foggy and a little bit hazy, so I don't have any specific stories. But yeah, that was part of the inspiration for Pub Crawl. I'm glad you watched. Thank you for watching it, by the way.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought the length of the episodes were perfect, and that could be whether like I had a long day at work and I was like, I want to prepare and I want to enjoy this, but I don't want to sit in front of the TV for 4 hours. Because each episode is an hour long.
Totally. So that bite-sized content is, I really enjoy that as well. The episodes are between 10 and 12 minutes. And it's a great time. They're great. They're perfect for commuting when and if we commute again. But they're also great for just like in between one show to the next. You just want a little breather, a little want to refresh your palate or something, and our hope is that you sit down and just binge watch all of them and go through all of them.
Yeah, and that's what I ended up doing. It was kind of when you first back in December, like right when you announced it, I was like on it. I'm like searching it on the TV. I'm like, sweet, we got it. All right, everybody, leave me alone. I got to focus on this. And then that was as soon as you like agreed to do the show, I was like, perfect. All right, so. Yeah, and then I saw it come up. I was like, this is super cool.
That was a dream gig because I essentially made a TV show with some of my best friends about going to bars and getting drunk. and like meeting new people and chatting about the history of these establishments in the city, Halifax, Nova Scotia, that I love.
Yeah, amazing city.
That was my job. And that's crazy.
Man, that doesn't just happen. Like I'm thoroughly impressed that you created. That's incredible. Wow. What was that process like? Like take me through that, kind of when that idea stemmed to how'd you like
so I have a writing partner, a producing partner, John Mann. We met at university and we have sort of been friends ever since. He went to the New York Film Academy after graduating from Acadia.
Oh, cool.
Reached out to me just after he had graduated from there and said, hey, I wrote this thing and I wrote it with you in mind because you're one of the only people doing this professionally that I know. Do you want to read it? And it was pretty good. And I had just, I'm making a short story long, sorry. But I had just, of all people to take inspiration from, I had just seen the Trailer Park Boys do a like appearance/show at a small bar I was going to. And in the Q&A, one of them, I forget the question he was asked, but he was just talking about how in Canada, this is one of the actors from the show, they were talking about how in Canada, you have to, especially Canada, you have to create your own opportunities. No one's going to walk up to you and say, hey, do you want to star in this show?
Interesting, but LA they would, you found a bit.
I don't know.
More likely?
All the chances are slim no matter what, but I think in Canada especially, you need to you need to write for yourself. And especially for me, a big guy, I'm not going to be the Romeo. I'm not going to be, the romantic lead. So I need to write something for myself. And maybe that is what I write. But anyway, so I had that in the back of my head of I want to start writing. I want to start producing. And my buddy John reached out to me sort of just at that point. And we've been writing and producing and creating together for 8-10 years now. and we have a production company together, and then he also has a separate one that does a lot of documentaries.
Oh,
And
cool.
so this idea sort of stemmed in that world about creating a show that really celebrates this incredible city, Halifax, Nova Scotia. It's one of my favorite places in the world.
It's an incredible city, yeah.
I've been fortunate enough to go to, I think I've traveled to over 50 countries, and Halifax is still one of my favorite places in the entire world.
That's incredible.
People are amazing. The landscape is incredible. The food is amazing. And it has such a rich, deep history. And so this show sort of stemmed from that, this love for the city and knowing that there's these bars that people there take for granted. They go and enjoy them, but they don't know they're standing in a 250-year-old building or 260-year-old building or at a place where a really historically significant event happened. And so we just thought that's a great window into bars, and restaurants are a great window to any city, but especially Halifax. So the idea sort of came from that, grew in John's mind. He pitched it to Bell, and they bought it, and we made it.
Nice. What was the process like for you guys that made it different, like where COVID came into play? Because it seemed like it didn't seem like, I knew it was filmed during a time that COVID was a thing, but it didn't quite look like everyone was masked up, everyone was on edge, and no one was having a good time. It looked quite literally the opposite. It's like, what kind of restrictions did you have to kind of play with a bit? Like,
yeah, I mean, part of that is I would say that's twofold. The city, the province itself, and the fact that it was in bars and restaurants. So Halifax, during the summer, the maritime provinces created a bubble together. And I think at one point in time, it was considered one of the safest places for COVID in the entire world. They had like no cases for 3-4 months. I'm pulling that number out of my butt, but it was a really safe place. So within this bubble, things were a little bit looser. There was still the like federal regulations and everything, but it was a little bit looser, which was great. It kind of felt like, for a brief moment when I was there, it was like, oh wow, COVID doesn't exist. This is
nice.
It was almost like a window to a year in the future.
Cool.
So there's that, and then in bars and restaurants, you can take your mask off when you're eating.
Right.
Or when you're seated at a table and you are 6 feet from everyone. So
makes sense.
So I would say those two things allowed us to create. We didn't set out thinking we want to pretend COVID doesn't exist. We want this to appear like it wasn't shot during COVID. But we thought, if we can avoid people wearing masks, you can see their face. And if you can avoid the plexiglass at the cash, you're going to avoid the glare. So it became a very practical thing. Nice.
And I'm sure John's he's like on the ball with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, he's a writer director, so he got a great eye and knew what he was looking for. And we shot a lot of these things, a lot of the interviews and stuff during the day too. So a lot of the bars were closed and we were able to have a one-on-one conversation. So that helped too.
That makes sense. Man, that's super cool. I think, and there's something when I found out it was shot in Halifax, like, because the amount of times I can relate when you say somebody's sitting in a bar, they're enjoying the hell out of the experience, but like you said, they don't know they're sitting in a 250 plus year old building. Because I've been in, my best friend in college moved after first year out to Halifax for a job, and it's because his girlfriend moved out there, and so he moved out there, and so like 3 times a year I would fly out for like 4 days, like I'd leave on Thursday night, come back Monday afternoon, just in time for class at 6, and then that's I'm one of those people who did not know I was sitting in a 250 year old building, and it's incredible seeing and hearing the history that goes in, like with rum runners and everything, and then all that stuff it's wild, because Canadian history, I think, is super it's overlooked.
Yeah, the rum runners, the city played a big part in Prohibition. There's obviously tons of ghost stories with buildings that old, and so much history, so many people. It was a huge port city. It was one of the biggest port cities in the world at one point.
Yeah.
And so a lot of different cultures, a lot of different people from different backgrounds come through the city, and they've left their mark on it. And it's just an amazing place. What was your experience when you were out there? Did you enjoy it?
I had a blast. My mother grew up in Halifax, so being able to see it kind of, and like her telling me from when she was younger of what to look for, and then me saying, hey, this is what it looks like now, and her saying, well, 30 years ago, it's probably 20. She's going to get mad at me for saying that. But like 30 years ago, this is what it looked like. And now I'm seeing it kind of like down the road in the future, and then getting a perspective on how the experience it was for someone like her who was able to see it when they were younger, and then me seeing it now, understanding how she felt, and how you can look at a building or be inside or create an experience, and then it's different. It'd be different for you. Whereas if I did the same thing where I went to each pub that you went to, it'd be completely different experience for me. And I think that was the coolest part, was being able to see it, knowing her experiences with Halifax, and then seeing it through my best friend's eye, who had been to Halifax or lived in Halifax as many days as I've ever been there. So it's like, well, we have the same amount of time in the city, but seeing it through a local's eyes, and then his girlfriend being there for a couple of years, and then friends and family of theirs living out there, I had a blast. I love that city, like Citadel Hill, everything. It's wild. Cool. Yeah.
Did you go to any of the bars that we went to in the show?
Two of them looked familiar. I'll be honest. I was like, I'm with my best friend. I'm going. I'm like, he's a big guy, so I'm being able to keep up with him. And it's probably like 155, 60 pounds soaking wet with a hoodie on. When I was in Halifax, he's like 265. You know, like he's a bigger guy than me, and him being able, like, he's drinking his glasses of whiskey, and I'm just like, gin and tonic, please. Like, kind of I'm stumbling to the bar. So I think the Split Crow, because he told me about Power Hour, and I do remember that. So when you brought it up, I was like, Split Crow, that sounds familiar. And then you got to experience, or you got to be like on the front lines of Power Hour, from what I vaguely remember of my experience.
It's like,
what I found interesting when I watched you in that is you, like, Split Crow is with the second episode, I believe, or first?
Second. First.
Okay.
I'm sure I got this wrong, but I think it's the first. Yeah.
I think, because I'm curious, because after every single bar afterwards, you were asked about, or you were you're like, where should I go? Like, you know, what's a cool place to go next? And then they would say, have you been to the Split Crow? And you're just like,
traumatized.
Yeah. So I'm like, man, what was that experience like for you?
Shooting that, or what?
Participating and being on the front line. Sorry.
At specifically at the Split Crow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was a blast. I had been there several times in my youth, and don't remember much of it, but like you, I enjoyed myself at Power Hour, and even I remember it being absolute chaos. And in some summer nights, or I guess fall, as soon as all the students come back, there's like a lineup around the corner and hundreds and hundreds of people in there. And for those that don't know, Power Hour, Split Crow has this thing where I'm going to get the times wrong, but for an hour or two, beers are significantly cheaper. And so people just order like a tray of them, and like a giant restaurant tray. And you have these very talented wait staff walking around with these giant trays over their head. And there's people screaming and singing, and it's got a big like October vibe kind of fest. And so when we were shooting that, they let me serve, and it was hectic. And I had people, even though I had a camera following me and people knew we were shooting a show, there were still people yelling at me like, "Get me my beer!" In the most polite East Coast way.
Yeah.
Please. But it was a lot of fun.
that's, I think when it comes to those experiences, like, man, the first thing I thought of when it said, because it says pub crawl Halifax, so that immediately my brain switched and goes, does that mean they're leaving the door open for pub crawl Ottawa, pub crawl Toronto, pub crawl Barcelona, like that, all that?
That is the dream. That's the
That's
dream.
sick.
Yeah, we're you never know. I mean, season 1 just came out. But our goal is to slowly sort of grow it and explore different cities. I think the Maritimes was and is a great place to start. I think there's still some other cities there that we'd love to explore. St. John's, Newfoundland.
St. John's would be cool.
PEI is Charlottetown would be a great spot. I know Charlottetown, underrated place. They also played in terms of history. They had a big role in Prohibition.
Really.
Sydney, Cape Breton, tons of places, and then we'd love to sort of blow the show out a little bit more and do a season or maybe even an episode in Montreal, Vancouver.
That'd be cool.
Fort Mac has a bunch of history, like all over Canada. I'd love to go to the territories and explore some of the places up there, and then the goal is Episode 1, we're in Boston.
Yeah.
Episode 2, we're in Madrid. Episode 3, we're in Berlin. Or that's the pipe dream. But
down the line.
But I do think it's a great way. It's a great window into a city and a culture and something that we haven't really seen in a lot of shows. A lot of travel shows are food focused or art focused or whatnot. And not a lot of them are booze focused. There's elements of that, but it's not the focus of the show. And I think the show would work really well exploring cities around the world.
Nice. And man, I asked that because I'm curious when because in the end of September, last week of September and the first weekend of October, me and 4 of my best friends traveled, like road trip they went Ottawa to Sudbury to get me, and then we went to Victoria on Vancouver Island, and then all the way back. And I was like, as we were going, that's 3 of their big things is for the 3 of them, their big thing is pubs, bars, distilleries, and what's the word I'm looking for? Like craft breweries. Yeah. And so seeing that and then hearing you say, I'm like, man, there's so much potential in this country for it. It'd be so cool to see.
Yeah, I know one of the I think the oldest bar in Canada is, again, I might be making this up, but in our research, I feel like I read somewhere that the oldest bar in Canada is in Niagara Falls, or Niagara on the Lake area.
Wow.
There's another one in Chester, Nova Scotia, just outside of Halifax that we didn't get to explore. And then obviously there's tons on the West Coast, and there's lots left to explore. A lot more pub crawl to be had.
Perfect. That's awesome to hear. When you've been to St. John's, right?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. What was that like, man? Because because I grew up watching a TV show on CBC that was based purely out of St. John's. And so ever since I watched that, I'm like, man, like we had 3 channels growing up, or at least I did. My friends didn't. But watching all these shows, I'm like, man, like I'm like reruns of this show. And it's like, man, I want to St. John's. Anytime I hear somebody mention that they've been there, my first thing is like, man, what was St. John's like?
What show was it that you watched?
Republic of Doyle.
Oh yeah. I am chummy with Alan Hawka, the guy who was in that and created that. That's why I was there. I was out visiting him about another project.
No. Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Or no, sorry. I originally planned to go out and meet him, and then at the last second, he booked a show. What's that one with John Krasinski, Jack Ryan?
Oh, Jack Ryan, yeah.
That's right. In Colombia when I went out there, but I love cool. St. John's is incredible, great city. The Maritimes as a whole are just an incredible place. St. John's is a very unique city. Again, much like Halifax, the people are just bend over backwards for you. It's great food, great seafood, lots to drink, lots to. I was there for work, but we managed to squeeze in a lot of fun.
Nice, that's awesome. Wow, yeah, it looked like a very fun show to do.
Yeah,
Yeah, it definitely
Yeah,
did.
definitely. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. What was your, I want to focus on some like challenges you had in your career. If there was one that stood out to you, and how you were able to kind of like overcome it in that time.
Hmm. Um, I've been very fortunate. I've been very,
Mm.
very lucky in my career. I nothing pops to my head um, right away. I mean, I've had to make a lot of choices, like we all do. I mean, life is choices and decisions, as
Yeah.
my friend John says. And so there's been times where I've had to pass up on a role because something was happening, or I didn't go to an audition or take a role, and it ended up being awesome.
Mhm.
But yeah, nothing drastic pops into my head, which I think is a really good and fortunate thing. Um, but listen, man, I think the biggest thing I've learned to this point in my life is we're all just fucking winging it. Everyone is winging it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's been tons of, I guess, little obstacles that I've come up against in my career, and I'm just winging it. You just figure it out as you go. Just sort of close your eyes, put your hands out, and just
Yeah.
feel your way through it.
Figure it out.
That's been sort of my attitude.
All right. So, how you mentioned you're very, like, clearly very fortunate with your career so far. What is like a goal project that you'd like to work on? Or what is actually better yet, what is a project that you've done that you're probably the most proud of? Like be a performance or a film or an award?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there'd be some crossover there. My writing partner and I, John, wrote a show called Wolfville, an hour-long dramedy that ended up going to this competition through the National Screen Institute, their Totally Television program, and we were fortunate enough to get accepted into that program where they groom you, partner you with people, and teach you the ropes and everything.
Yeah.
Through that, we ended up selling it to a production company, which is how I ended up getting linked up with Alan Hocko.
Nice.
And it ended up not going anywhere as of right now. But that is, I think, the thing I'm probably the most proud of. And I think a goal would be to, I mean, obviously to make that show, but to write, to work on something from beginning to end that started from just a thought in your head.
Yeah.
To like concept a show, write all the beats, write the script, pitch the script, sell the script, pre-production on the show, make the show, edit it, and see it on air. That would be something that would
wow.
I would get so much satisfaction out of that, to see something start from a nugget in my head to a finished product out there in the world on screens. That is something I think I'm chasing. I think it's something every filmmaker is chasing, and I've been fortunate enough to have a little bit of success with that, and with short films and some other small projects. Pub Crawl being one.
Yeah.
But a feature film or a I guess a network show would be the next mountain I want to climb.
Nice. One that stems from light bulb to all of a sudden big red carpet, everyone's cheering, you're happy, all dressed up, ready to accept the award.
That's the goal, man.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. I think there's a lot of I think, like you said, it's funny you mentioned that, and then with people, especially in Canada, and I concur when you say that with creating your opportunities. Like it's quite literally nobody gives you anything. Like nobody, like you didn't nobody will reach out to me to be on the show. I have to do the legwork. Nobody will prepare for me. I have to do it. Nobody will everything with production, everything, your auditions and everything, your agents, you have to be on the ball for those opportunities in order to make the most of them, I find.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, listen, I'm in no position to be giving life lessons um, or anything like that, but it's just about doing the work. Um, nothing, very rarely is anything handed to you. And often the things that you're most satisfied with are the things you worked really hard on. Um, yeah, I mean, and it's not always going to happen. You're not always going to get it. Even a few months ago, I probably wouldn't have told you that created a show and it didn't end up going anywhere. But it's the reality of it, and I hope people know that it doesn't. It's not going to happen every time. It's not going to happen every time, and sometimes you got to keep working and keep pushing and keep going. But if you're not interested in that journey and that drive, then it's probably something you shouldn't be doing anyways.
Interesting. How do you were fortunate enough to find your passion reasonably young. Like, I don't think people even really find it till, if anything, late 20s, maybe at best. What kind of triggered it? Was it being put into theater and stuff, and that was able to trigger your brain to going, this is something what I want to do, just trying different things out?
Yeah. You're right. I am very fortunate that I found something I'm passionate about early on in life. And yeah, it was just a feeling. It was just doing something. And I was like, oh, I could do this every day for the rest of my life. My mom and my dad were teachers. My grandmother was a teacher. There's been teachers in my family, a long lineage of educators. And I had always thought that that's what I was going to do. I was going to be a teacher. And I had that in my head. And it wasn't until I stepped on stage at a local theater that I was like, oh no, this is what I'm passionate about.
Nice.
This is what I want to spend my life pursuing and working on. So yeah, I think I am lucky because that doesn't happen to everyone. Not everyone has that feeling. Sometimes, sometimes it never comes to people. But yeah, that's I'm very lucky in that sense.
Awesome. Kind of to more conclude the what's the questioning portion of it. Do you have any last kind of like stories or lessons that you'd like to? I know you said you're not in a position to give life lessons, but do you happen to have any? It could be either a quote or a lesson someone has taught you, or that you've picked up through someone, from a mentor or a friend or anything really. And what does that look like as like a closing message or a closing lesson that you've learned along the way that you could embark on somebody if they were to take it as a piece of wisdom?
I heard someone the other day say, measure once, cut twice.
Measure once, cut twice.
I thought that was a great piece of
amazing
counter to the measure twice, cut once. Just go for it. Just again, we're all winging it, so just swing away.
Yeah.
That would be my one piece of it.
That's amazing. Man, it was funny. I heard somebody say something like that like a bit of time ago, and because I was cutting 2x4s, and they're like, Glenn, measure twice, cut once. And I was like, and then I'm like, man, I cut it twice and it's still too short. And they're like, what the? So hearing that reminds me of that, and I was like, oh no, that's embarrassing. But well, for me, but
I love that. Just swing away, and you can always cut the 2x4 again. You know.
Yeah.
There'll always be another 2x4.
There'll always be another 2x4. I'm gonna use that next time my boss asks me. I'm like, sorry, sir. He's like, man, there's going to be another one. It's like, yeah, but we have to pay for it. Okay. Yeah. Nice, brother. All right. So, that concludes the episode. Man, hopefully COVID ends soon, and I could treat you to one or, as you say in pub crawl, 10 beers at next time I'm in Toronto. Hopefully once COVID.
Next time you're here, we'll line a few up and knock them down.
Amazing, brother. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your show and the work you've done, and allowing me to be entertained by you living your passion. So I really appreciate that, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's nice to know there's people out there watching. So thank you for having me on. I'm a fan of the show.
Awesome, man. I appreciate that.